Hello, everyone. So, welcome to week two. We are in module two. So, just to reiterate, module one specifically is going to house your assessments, the information where we were just getting started. It has your major assignment information there, your service learning, and other resources. Modules two, three, and four is where our content is. So, we are still working on module two. There are 5 weeks in each module. We are on week two. So, just to kind of go over the format so you're familiar, because I know you're still new and technically, you know, we haven't had much access inside the course. Hopefully, you have. Some of us have still had some questions on where to find the activities. So, the first section here are going to be your learning activities, like your learning resources. So you'll always see it's laid out very similar. You'll have your overview or your outcomes and keywords, any kind of reading you have, presentations, any web page or videos I want to include. I also include the citations as well as if you have any questions. I check these about once a week. I've been trying to get in there every day, but it doesn't happen. So if you need an answer pretty quickly, I suggest emailing me your question. Also, it's a good way to, if you list your question in here under the discussion question topic, some students can reply to. The bottom section is specifically going to be your activities, your assignments that you turn in. So you'll see here at the top, you have two service learning documents that need to be submitted to your service learning team, one notebook. So you have the VEX waiver form and then the service learning release hold harmless. So those need to definitely get submitted. I had a question from several students asking me, did you get my application? What the problem was is that students were submitting things to Dropbox. Okay, so these dates here are not for you to submit anything to Dropbox. They're just dates there to give you an idea of when you have to turn something into Teams. So all your documents will go into Teams. The only thing that gets submitted from Service Learning into Dropbox is going to be your journal and then your written analysis reflection paper. Everything else really needs to go into the Teams One notebook. So just keep that in mind. How you're going to also be assessed this week is going to be two things. You're going to have a Quizlet, which is not something you're going to turn in. This is really for feedback for you, but it is a study tool. So last week we had Iris module. The Iris module really was a study tool. Now there will be weeks when you will submit the assessment portion, but sometimes you'll have things where you'll go through an IRIS module or you'll do a Quizlet. And this is really a study tool for you to give you feedback to see how well you have been engaged and if you actually understand the content. So you're not submitting anything, but it is an assignment for you to do. The historical figures activity is one that you will be assessed. The assignment is worth 25 points. I will walk you through that in just a little bit, but I wanted to let you see how the course was laid out. So starting with the overview, outcomes, and keywords, I always tell students to start there because this really gives you an overview of what we're doing. So the first section is always going to be your overview course outcomes. So these are the outcomes that we will have related to this module. And we have an overview. So this week, we're really going to be diving into the history of special education and special education law. Our objectives are listed here. So we want to identify the primary historical stages in the education of the disabled, including current trends. We're going to identify laws and their impact on the education of students with disabilities. And lastly, we're going to compare the primary laws which influence education of individuals with disabilities. This will be specifically pertaining to IDA, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and the Americans with Disabilities Act. So those were the objectives. So I want you to keep these objectives in mind as you go through the content this week. As far as your learning tasks and your reading tasks, it's going to be your reading out of either a textbook or something else that I give you to read. So this PDF here is free. So this is a free PDF book that I have offered to the students in this course. It's also found under resources page under module 1. But this is something I give you as a supplement. It goes along with our text and it dives a little bit deeper and is connected with our text content. So that's why I gave that to you. But you're going to read chapter 1 in that text. When you click on it, you'll see here when you go to it, it is a PDF that comes up. Now, this is a wonderful resource for teachers. So if I were you, I would go ahead and download it, save it because it is a PDF. It does not cost you any money. And like I said, it has some great information for students pertaining to special education. So once it loads here, I'm going to show you kind of an idea of the table of contents. Okay, so you see here special, you're going to be chapter 1, and this is specifically related to the laws of special education and how they affect it. So if I'm having you read out of this, it has to be connected to our course outcomes, and you'll see it's also connected to the text. So a lot of stuff is really going to overlap or dive deeper into our objectives, which is helpful for you when you're trying to understand um, and gain a deeper knowledge of special education. The other thing you're going to be looking at is you're going to be reviewing a PowerPoint specifically on the history of special education and laws. And then the last one is really neat. So this is going to be a web page that is going to talk all about the history in time when we're talking about developmental disabilities. Now, this was put by the Department of Administration underneath the Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities. And this really is a neat resource. So I know it's a lot. I want to forewarn you, it can be overwhelming. I know you don't physically have time to look at everything this week, but what I want you to do is to save this tab. That way, throughout the semester, right before you take the quiz 1, you can go back and look at this because you're going to see some of this stuff in the PowerPoint that comes up, but it really is neat. So you can do two things. You can go through the tabs at the top, and if you do, you'll see they have drop down menus, and it kind of walks you through the different centuries, the different eras of time, and what was happening with this individuals who had disabilities during those times. Okay. And then part two is really going to be from the 1950s today. Like what happened? What was the epilogue moving forward? What was the reality with individuals from 1950s to today? You can also navigate this resource by looking and scrolling down. You'll see it has some pictures. It gives you indication of the era and time or the century. And then it has, of course, the links there to get you to it. So let's say that we want to go to the 17th and 18th centuries. When you click on it, this is what it's going to look like, right? It's going to give you a little synopsis of that time. And then you'll see when you scroll down, you're going to have reading to do. But what's really neat about this is that it's pretty easy to navigate. You just hit the next as you're going through. It really has some great information because it talks about things during that time that really were important during that history and what was also going on with individuals with disabilities and how they were connected during that time. Okay. And you may even see too that it may have some individuals that pop up that were important from our historical figures activity assignment that you'll be completing this week. So, like I said, it is a lot of information you may not get to, but save it because throughout the term you can go back and look at it, and that's really going to help you, especially before we have quiz 1. The next thing I put in here is going to be your assignments. So these are things you're going to turn in or submit. So we have the two that we talked about, which was your pre-service learning documents, and those will be submitted to your Teams One notebook. And then your historical figures activity. Now, underneath that is assessment. That's what I'm assessing you on. Okay, so here I put Quizlet Special Education. That's there for you. Quiz yourself. Great way to study. You don't turn anything in, but you will turn in your historical figure activity, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Down underneath are keywords and concepts. So a lot of these are related to the laws. So this is very important that you know what these laws are, right? So make sure you go through and you read it and know what that law is. Now, if you scroll down a little bit further, you're going to see a list of names. These names have to do with our historical figures activity. These are people who changed special education. They had an impact on special education. So I put those names there because they are key to what we're going to be doing this week. So, an easy way when you're going through the weeks is to use the arrows because it keeps you on track after read the overview and it'll walk you through everything that you need to do. So, there's that link to the Teacher's Guide to Special Education that I showed you, so you can download it there. Okay, this is the website that we just saw, the parallels in time. So the link is there for you. Okay, and this is the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint is important. I do take test questions from this, and it's important for you to download and save this because we're going to be referring to a lot of this law throughout the semester, and it's important for you to become familiar with it. It is quite a large PowerPoint, but it's important for you to understand that not only does it talk about history, and how these laws came about, but it talks about each individual law as well as case law and how some of those case laws really impacted special education moving forward. So, this is a really important one for you to make sure that you save and that you really go through. Okay, as always, I put the citations there for you. Another tool to use too is going to be the questions about the course. Now, I try to get in here every day or every couple of days, but realistically, it's been about every week that I've been like once a week looking at it. So if you need an answer to your question faster, it may be in your best interest to email me. But again, you can more than certainly put them on there. I know that there was a question about the Iris module, someone had answered it, but I went ahead and responded to that discussion. So either way is fine, but please reach out. So there's the two assignments. I wanted to make a note of something. Some students had submitted their service learning application to Dropbox. This is just here for you as a reminder that the assignment is due. Do not turn any service learning paperwork into Dropbox. All of your service learning paperwork is really going to go into your Teams One notebook. The only thing that will be submitted in regards to service learning inside of a Dropbox for this course is going to be your journal entries and your service learning written analysis paper. Everything else is really going to be in the Teams. Now, there's that Quizlet I talked about, that special education law. So make sure that you look at that because this is part of your assessment. Even though you're not turning something in, it really is there to help assess your knowledge, right? You give you feedback on how you are doing with the special education law. I would not attempt this until after I went through the PowerPoint. Okay, so when you click on it, the the Quizlet will come up. You do not have to sign up for anything. It's a link to the actual page. You will have to click where it says SPED the laws. Now, when you click on it, it's really neat because it allows you to see that there's different ways to test your knowledge. You have flashcards, you have learning activities, you have tests, so you can take practice tests, you can do a matching game. So these activities really give you valuable feedback. Now we're going to get into the actual activity, which is where you're going to be receiving some points this week. So your assessment will be worth 25 points for this activity. Now, I wanted to take time to go through this activity. So for this activity, you're going to be creating a presentation on a historical figure. Okay. So within your presentation, you're going to be using a platform that we call Book Creator. Now, some of you may be familiar with it. I know that a lot of the natural science people use this. If you already have a book creator account, when you log in, you're going to be pasting this code to join my library, and that will allow you to put your books in my library instead of in your other courses. So just be specific, and if you need help with that, please reach out and I will help you with that. But within this presentation, you're not going to be submitting this to Dropbox. You will create your book directly in Book Creator, and that's where I will go inside and grade it. So you will not have a Dropbox for this. So within your presentation, you're going to be including lots of information. So you're going to have to do some research on the person. So if you look down here, there are 4 links. We have the list of the historical figures for you to choose from. You've got the link to Book Creator, which is the platform you're using to create your presentation. You have a brief synopsis to look at the figures, historical figures, to see if you would like to choose that person. And then we have the rubric for the assignment on how you're going to be graded. So if you click on the first one, here's the list of people that you have to choose from. So all of these people impacted special education in some way. You are only going to be choosing one of these. Now, maybe you are familiar with one of these or some of these people. That would be good for you to have a great starting point. But if you're not familiar, I suggest looking at the brief look into historical figures. Now, this is really neat because it gives you a small synopsis into the individual. It has a picture of them, their birth date, their death date, and kind of a small look into what they did. Now, this is research for a presentation, so you need to use more than one source. I require at least 2 sources. So you could use this if you would like, but you also need to use another research database to help you gather your information. So within your presentation, you're going to be including these specific guidelines. You're going to have a picture. Um, I'd like more than one. Some people choose to use a picture that they got from the Satori, which is fine, but it would be great if you had multiple pictures. If we're thinking about a presentation, visuals really help bring the book or the presentation to life. So it's important for us to get a caption with a picture or show us what is going on in the content of the presentation. And visuals really help bring that across. You're going to put the name, year, birth, their death date. Also, remember when you're doing a presentation, it's a good idea to always use a title page. So make sure you have a title page. The country of origin where they were born and where did they do most of their work. What was their education background and what was their professional background? What was the particular area of interest of working with individuals with disabilities? And what are 2 significant contributions to individuals with disabilities? Now, it's not listed here, but it goes without saying it's important for students to make sure that if you're using sources, which I require 2, for researching a certain disability, a certain person, or any kind of research really you're doing, you must cite where you got your information. You have to give credit to someone if you're using their work. So it's important for you to include a reference page at the bottom. Now, I did make a note to remind you that you do not put this in Dropbox. I will grade the assignment directly inside of Book Creator. So when you click on the Book Creator activity, I will show you kindly what it looks like. So if I were to open up, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to have to create an account. Okay, this is a free account. Like I said, if you already have an account, you will just um, join with a new library and using this code, and I will show you in just a second. So you will create a free account, use your information, username, password. I'm going to go ahead and log in to show you kind of what it will look like. And yours may look slightly different because I'm the instructor, but I wanted to show you. Okay, so this will be your dashboard, okay? And you'll have tabs here that kind of walk you through different parts of Book Creator, but what we're specifically looking at is where it says My Libraries, okay? So if you already have used Book Creator in other courses, then you'll probably have a book you created. If that's the case, you're going to have to click Join Library and you're going to have to include our class library code. And what that does is it lets you into my class, in my SPED class, and you'll be able to put your book in there. Otherwise, it's going to end up in your own library and I won't be able to see your book. Okay, so it's important for you to join a library. Now, whenever you first get started and you create an account, you can join a class with a code, and it's going to ask you to include a code. And this is the code that you will use. Okay. Now, once you're in there, I will show you an example of a book. Once you're in there, you can see when I look in my library, and you can see this too, is you'll see lots of books. Now, obviously, with this class, I'm going to have to delete some of these because you will be able to have room to display your books. But I'm going to give you an example of a book someone created. So this one was on Margaret Bancroft, right? So you'll see they did a title page for their presentation. They included some visuals, and then they included their content. Okay, so how you create this is really up to you as far as the format. Some people use one page, some people like to make it look like a book that's bound with 2 pages. You'll see they didn't include much as far as visuals. It really helps the person reading it because others are seeing your book as well for you to include some visuals in your project. Also, whenever I say to do citations, this is not a correct citation. We have to use what we call the APA format, okay? So what's missing here, and I wanted to show you this one on purpose, is that they don't have the reference page. It's important for you in a project to include a reference page citing the sources, and I would like you to use APA format. So one thing I wanted to show you real quick, if you ever need help with the library, there is a librarian that's actually embedded into our course. And what that means is that if you go to our class list, you can scroll down, okay, until you see research coach. So Sabrina Moreland is our librarian and she's embedded in our course. Can email her if you have any questions. Another thing you can do is if you need help with the library, is if you go to more and oh, excuse me, I think it's this. Resources, excuse me, go to resources. There's a link to go to library. That will help you to get in contact with the library. So the library has some really neat information. If you want to do database to search research for your project, you can do that. It also shows you their time. You can give them a call, email them. If you really want to email, I would go through our course and email Sabrina directly. She can help you. Also, if you'll notice, it has the database in. You can schedule a library session with one of the ladies, which again, if you want to use Sabrina, she's really great. Um, it also has it also has citing sources, which is a really good resource for you. It tells you how to do APA. So there's different types of guides that you can use when you're citing sources. Since we use APA, I would like you to look at the APA guide. And it kind of walks you through how do you cite sources. Okay. So that's what you're going to be using for the assignment. I hope that this really helped you gain an understanding into what I expect this week. Like I said, this week is really heavy. There's a lot in this week, but I really feel like you can get a lot out of it. Please save the PowerPoint presentation kit and please make tabs on the parallels in time. You will find that on not only when you go back to study for quiz one, but this is really important information because we're going to be referencing this throughout the term. And just also note, just because this is an online class doesn't mean that I'm not available. If you want to schedule a meeting with me, I'm more than happy to meet with you. We can meet over the phone, we can do a Teams meeting, or we could even schedule in-person meetings. So if you'll notice, I did put in here, I think I might have sent an email about this. You can actually schedule an appointment with me. I did list that I'm available to meet with you more than one way. If you want to schedule a meeting with me, I did put my office hours on here. What I tell students is that look at it, see when I'm available, and then email me, and then I will email you back a link to Teams if you want to meet virtually, or if you say I need to meet in person, I'll schedule a meeting in person. So this is just giving you an idea when I'll be available. So please make sure you utilize that if you need help. But I am here to support you because I know that this is a lot of heavy content. This subject is a lot, but I do want to support you even if it is an online course. All right, guys, I hope you have a great week. Please reach out if you have any questions. And until next time, take care.